We're hearing a lot these days about police reform. This became much more of an issue here in the U.S. after the Minneapolis police killing of George Floyd during the summer of 2020. Then more demands for police reform in January 2023 after the Memphis police killing of Tyre Nichols. Protesters, activists, politicians, they all demanded change, whether defunding the police, federalizing the police, or some kind of reform. This is a complicated problem. Most folks agree the vast majority of police officers are brave and good people who do everything possible to keep our communities safe. And demonizing all cops, well, it's just not fair. With that said, obviously, yes, there are problem cops out there like Minneapolis, like Memphis, and other cities where some police departments must improve. So we ask the question, just how does law enforcement make those improvements when necessary? To find some answers, we travel to Orange County, California, and the city of Santa Ana, a city that's had many of its own policing issues over the years. We hit the streets with the Santa Ana police chief to try and get a better idea of how cops and community coexist for a better future. So this is your hood, this is your neighborhood.
Yeah, it is. This is kind of a flashback here in this corner here. 1000 Westbrook and Shelton spent a lot of time here.
Santa Ana Police Chief David Valentin is a proud native of this great city. Chief Valentin spent his childhood and high school years here, admittedly had some run-ins with the cops, got involved with the wrong crowd, gave his mom and grandma some added stress, to say the least. And yet some years later graduated university with honors, got several degrees, and then returned here for a career in law enforcement, an entire life in Santa Ana, California. And when many Santa Ana natives leave this city in the hopes of finding a new life, David Valentin chose to remain and give back to his community. As a young rookie officer over 30 years ago, one of his first assignments was, of all things, patrolling this intersection, his street, back in the day. The department had asked him to reach out to some of the residents here to collectively decide if this neighborhood should be accessible to the public, given its danger zone.
What you had in the 1970s and 1980s was this street, Brook Street, ran all the way west to Bristol, major thoroughfare. So a lot of part of the crime that occurred here, shootings and shooting gallery, as we call it, heroin sales and that, people would just literally drive by and then they're on a major thoroughfare and head north or south. So here I am, imagine I'm a rookie officer and I'm knocking on doors, the apartment complexes here. And I had friends that lived here. And so they see me in this uniform now. And I'm asking them about, what do you think? And of course, the response was, yes, we want it shut down because we need additional safety. It's dangerous here.
Chief Valentin's outreach years ago on behalf of the Santa Ana Police Department helped lead to new traffic engineering out here. The city was trying to find ways to keep the kids and parents of this troubled intersection safe. In part, this was the beginning of what was to be a citywide campaign to try and rid Santa Ana of the overwhelming gang violence, homicides, robberies, drug warfare, crime, and graffiti that had plagued this area. Well, fast forward to today. There is a new outreach of sorts, and David Valentin, now chief of his department, is once again trying to lead the way. And for good reason. Santa Ana is trying to rewrite history in a manner of speaking, some of its policing history. It's a given that over the decades, the department has had thousands of brave officers like Valentin who have unconditionally put their lives on the line to protect the residents of the city. This cannot be argued. This is a fact. These officers have been and are today heroes to many in this community. With that said, over the decades, this urban metropolitan Orange County city of over 300,000 people has also witnessed its share of policing problems. This is also a fact that cannot be argued. Critics have cited things like a cop versus community mentality, police abuse, officer misconduct, civil rights violations, multi-million-dollar lawsuits, lack of oversight and accountability, lack of transparency, and what some say was a public distrust of the Santa Ana Police Department. This has been documented over the years in TV news reports, newspaper articles, legal filings. These are issues that Santa Ana Police Chief David Valentin is not going to argue over. Today, many in this city, even including some of the critics, say Valentin is effecting change and improving the department and the city like never before. Chief Valentin said this effort began with what he terms sustainable policing, which involves inclusion, investment, outreach, and genuine community engagement. This toy giveaway here in the Chief's old neighborhood is a good example.
Because of the pandemic, we had to adjust on how we engage the community safely. So what we came up with was pop-up community events. And so whether it's traffic safety, bicycle safety, or we just want to touch base with families and kids in the neighborhood and provide them items that are donated to us. We just announce on social media where we're going to be. We show up and engage kids, families, and it's just an opportunity to say, hello, how are you? How are things going? Here's a little something. Let me introduce you to my PSOs. Come on in here. Come on in here.
Hey,
So,
got the team here.
so this is the team. This is part of the team. Melissa and Nancy, they are our police service officers. So they're responsible for getting that information out to the community, saying today, this mid-morning, we're going to be at the corner of Brook and Shelton, and we have some goodies. And so again, it's just an opportunity to engage children, families, let them know that we're here for them. And again, it's very important that we focus on this. This is a large part of what we do. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo? Aileen. ¿Te gusta esta? No? ¿Cuál quieres? ¿Una más grande? Okay. She's gonna go with this one. Na, surprise teens. Okay. Okay, ahí está. ¿Cómo está?
Hola.
Okay, a usted. Have a great day. Okay. A ver, ¿qué le podemos dar? Do we have some for the little one? I have a barb. Okay, perfect. Okay, musical train. A ver, vamos a ver aquí.
Today's toy giveaway, like many recent SAPD outreach events, has been a success for the department and the community. As Valentin says, it's all about banding together. When this happens, according to police statistics, there is less gang violence in these high-risk neighborhoods, fewer shootings, less crime, and greater trust of law enforcement, sort of a new and improved Santa Ana. And yet sometimes there are reminders of the past. For example, something interesting happened while we were out here with the chief. As he was talking to neighbors and handing out toys, this resident approached me. She was first thanking me for organizing the toy giveaway. I told her I had nothing to do with the event. I was a news reporter interviewing the chief. That's when she began telling me about some of her safety concerns here, the gangs, the violence, the cars speeding through this intersection. So I asked the chief to speak with her. Although here's the thing, she changed her story when talking to the chief. Instead of complaining, she kept praising him for the toy giveaway. I asked the chief about this back in the car. Why the mixed message?
It was an interesting dynamic. I don't know if you noticed that as she began to tell me her concerns, when you and some of the other officers walked over, she sort of changed her tune and then she started praising you guys as if she was a little bit afraid, a little bit timid to really say what was in her heart about all her fears. That was an interesting dynamic.
Yes, I certainly noticed it as well. And my initial thought is that the appreciation of police officers here in the city, that makes up the vast majority of this community. I think people can get kind of narrow-minded perspective when they hear certain narratives. You can't trust the police. You can't talk to the police. And unfortunately, some of this starts with in the family, with parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts, and don't look towards the police. Look this other way. How do we address that? We have to continually break down those communication barriers. I myself, growing up on that very street, I remember my mom telling me, don't look at the police. The police will take you away, if you do something wrong. We got to change that narrative. The police are here to provide a service, to help, to support. But we can't get there. We can't bridge that gap unless that's the family we were talking to earlier. We can't bridge that gap if we don't sit back and say, okay, put ourselves in their shoes and share as much information as we possibly can. The other thing, 5 years ago when I took over as chief, one of the key components that I put in place was getting back to the basics. I didn't reinvent the wheel. What works? What works is encouraging officers that when they're not going from point A to point B on a call for service, that they have the ability to get out of the car and talk to folks.
That talking has led to a better cop-community relationship in Santa Ana. Neighbors don't seem to fear the police as much as they used to in the city, and officers have a greater patience and empathy for the residents. Basically, each listens to the other with greater respect, not just hearing each other, really listening. David Valentin can take credit for some of that. As chief, he has had to be a lot of things to a lot of people. A politician, a police officer, a partner, a friend, a therapist, whatever the situation requires. The chief's resume kind of explains why he's qualified to take on these demands. Chief Valentin was nominated to serve as president of the Orange County Chiefs of Police and Sheriffs Association for 2022-2023. This is a county that has over 3 million residents. He's been with Santa Ana PD over 30 years. The chief is a graduate of the FBI National Academy, the California Peace Officer and Standards Training Command College, and the Harvard University Program for State and Local Government Leaders.
Those are important investments in community-based engagement and policing to make sure that people get to know us.
Right.
And we encourage that at every level in the organization. I make it very clear to my officers that we're here for the community, and we're very blessed by the opportunity to serve in this role.
And yet, I hear you, and I appreciate you. Yet, with all that said, why do you believe that there is still fear from the citizenry and the officers? In other words, and it's not just unique to Santa Ana and your department, Chief. Really, every city I've ever reported in, I've noticed that often when I'm reporting on a story, people will want to talk to me and tell me how bad things are, and then when there are cops around, they sort of change their tune. Why is there this undercurrent of fear, do you believe, and how can that be changed?
So sadly and unfortunately, I think it's a narrative that sells. It's a narrative that sells, and it's this kind of perspective and philosophy that people can get drug into, and we're also our own worst enemy, right? When officers engage in misconduct and we as leaders don't address that openly and assertively, that erodes community trust. No matter how much investment that we have in our community, we need to make sure that we hold people accountable. Again, we hire from the human race, people make mistakes, and they need to be held accountable. What I as chief will not ever tolerate is for an officer, for example, that consciously disadvantages someone. There's no room for that here.
And listen, you said it, not me, Chief. I do believe 99% of the cops are great, brave, heroic people. But there are 1%. There are just bad cops out there. You know it and I know it, and you can't walk that back.
Correct. Yeah, and that's why we need to make sure that it's very clear what our expectations are for officers.
Part of those expectations are written into the chief's 5-year strategic plan. Very simply put, this basically defines best policing practices in Santa Ana. As part of the plan, Chief Valentin and the department partnered with the Orange County Human Relations Commission, something that had never been done before. The chief is trying to improve upon things like oversight and accountability, better consideration and communication of the community and the officers, better behavior, and the setting of new goals and objectives for the rank and file. The chief does not tolerate misconduct from his officers and sets that same standard for himself. Possibly that's part of the reason why he and his department have regained a lot of trust from the community. Just ask the folks here at the iconic Santa Ana Bristol Swap Mall. Nearly anything and everything is for sale here, one-stop shopping, and nearly anyone and everyone knows a chief. He's part of the family.
Bueno, ok, mucho gusto. Gracias a ustedes. ¿Verdad? Porque yo he venido aquí año tras año con backpacks para mis hijas y ahí les pone el nombre. Sí, sí. Mucho gusto. ¿Y qué es lo que hacen aquí?
Aquí hacemos fotografía para eventos, bodas, bautizos, 15
15
años.
años, todo. Okay. Mucho gusto, pues. Okay.
Earlier in the car, you were talking about de-escalating a situation, Chief. Would it help if your department, your officers had, say, for example, field liaisons or facilitators or social workers, someone to help you folks? Let's say if you are reacting to a homeless situation or a domestic disturbance, would it help?
It absolutely would help. It's a focus of our department and has been for the past several years. Most recently, we contracted with a nonprofit, CityNet, and they partner with our officers to respond to homeless incidents that are not crime specific. They just need resources, they need support, wraparound services. So it's a great resource. The other thing we have in place is crisis negotiators from within the police department. So we've had various successful incidents where we're able to de-escalate, diffuse, and really bring calm to a situation where someone may be experiencing a mental episode, and they just need to be heard and then reassured that everything's going to be okay.
Santa Ana residents are being heard more so than in the past. Part of that has to do with the fact that these days they seem to have more faith in the policing system here, more faith with Chief David Valentin, a city where both cops and community have a voice. Yes, there's still work to be done, policies that can be improved upon, change that can be implemented, relationships that can further be forged. Possibly a Santa Ana hometown hero can continue to lead the way.
It's special to me personally in that you never want to forget where you came from.